And I think honestly, you'd be better off trading. Like if I had to skip 2 days a week, I'd skip Monday and Friday. I think generally Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are probably better days to trade. Not always, but generally. So I would probably prefer trading 4 days a week than I would trading 5 days a week. And I trade 4 days a week a lot when it's slower. Lately, I've been doing 5, but in most of my life, I never took a day off. I never took a vacation. And I'm just now starting to get better about that because it's a sickness almost where you just never, ever want to be away. You're going to miss something, or you just like doing it a lot.
How are you doing, Mr. Brad? I was wondering when that was finally going to come through.
Yeah, no, I've been sitting here adjusting my camera and I didn't realize I was on mute and on video was off. I'm doing great. How about you? Got a nice green background. Where are you at?
Oh, it's very, 'tis the season. It's nice and lush here. I'm in the Northeast of the good old US of A. Where are you from?
I'm in the Northwest. I'm actually from the Midwest. I spent a lot of time in Chicago, but I'm in a place called Bainbridge Island, which is off Seattle. So it looks very similar here right now.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm very excited to meet you, Brad. I'm very glad that you made the time, especially on a holiday weekend, to come on and be a part. I'll say by way of introduction, I'm at the place in my, let's say, podcasting career where I would probably have anybody on. But when Ruben reached out and said that you were on deck to happen, and I looked into you, I was very excited. And I'm thankful that you've done this, and it's going to be very cool to have a conversation with you. And again, just thanks for being here and for
yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm happy to be here, and I love to. Every time you talk to somebody, you explore something new, you uncover something different. And for me, I've met some really good friends from doing these. And it's a personal growth curve that you're on when you're, I think, giving the interviews and talking about trading, and then you make friends outside of trading, and it all just kind of daisy chains together, and it's a good thing. So I've really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of us are stuck remotely, just buried behind screens. So this is healthy for us.
No doubt. Well, fingers crossed that this turns into another good friendship for you.
Yeah, great.
Very cool. So, okay, I know that one thing I'm excited about to understand about you is I know you've been in, let's say, the game for a long time. You started very young. And I would love to hear a little bit about maybe the beginnings, and not to get too bogged down with that part of it, but I know that you had an interest in trading for a very long time. And maybe we can actually start here, because I know there's a story goes around about you and during let's say an insane bull market where maybe I would know that you credit a lot of this success to favorable market conditions, but not to take away from the feat of taking a very small account of around $5,000 and at an early age ramping that up to $100,000, as I understand it. You, for one, is that a story that's been changed down the line, or is that a true story that you did?
No, I mean, are we on right now, or are we just talking off? Are we live on the podcast?
We are live, but if you'd like, you need to say something.
No, that's fine. No, I just wanted to say, that just so people know, my kids are young and they're going to bed in a nap, and it shouldn't be too bad, but if you hear some kids in the background, that's why I asked.
Okay, very good.
So, no worries. Yeah. So yeah, that story is true. Honestly, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, except for I love trading. And from a very young age, I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and there was really no trading culture around me at all. My dad and mom, they started a water well drilling business. And we grew up in a small town. They didn't even go to college, and I worked for that for a while. And I just had this desire to be involved in the markets. It was kind of part of me from the very early age. I don't know how early, definitely junior high. And it got tipped off by we had to take a FIED or gym class in junior high, if you remember that, if you had to do that. And the guy was always checking the stocks when we were doing class or whatever. And I would go up and look at what he was doing. And this was during, for some people who don't remember this was during like 1998, 99.
Okay.
And actually, it was earlier than that. It was in the late earlier. I don't even remember the year, mid to late 90s, because at that time you had like internet stocks, just a little bit of what you saw in 2020, but I would say even more extreme for a little longer. We had stuff going from 5 to 200, and then stocks going up $40, $50 a day that were a $60 stock,
Mm.
and just dentists trading in between, scheduling cleanings longer apart so they could trade. I mean, it was crazy. So that's like how 2000 eventually blew up and is overextended. Everyone got involved, and people got the margin debt got to a level that was just crazy. You really did feel like everyone was trading, and it felt
Mm.
like that a little bit with the pandemic at home,
Mm.
but it was even more widespread back then, I think. And then it kind of had a painful bleed out from there. So that's when I turned to money, and I don't even look at that. It's a funny thing for me. I was just, but I did learn one thing about myself then. One skill set that I took with me was I'm curious, and I'm early a lot on narratives and themes and ahead of
Mm.
maybe the media. So I used that to my advantage. And that's the one thing I did well. But in terms of trading knowledge and risk management, I didn't know a damn thing. So I gave back. I bought a Volkswagen Jetta, I think, for college.
Ah.
The rest of it I pretty much burned up, and that was my tuition, plus a lot more, but that was the first part.
So let me ask you this. Was it something that you look back on as there was wins, there was losses, and when you kind of look at it, you're like, holy crap, I made $100,000? Or was there, like, you actually ramped it up and at one point had, let's say, a six-figure account?
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't even faze me. It was just, I just loved the game, and I wanted to make a lifelong work of mastering it to the extent that I could. And you never master it, but just to get the most and learn and grow and be around others who could push me. So all it did really was show, it just was a validation of my obsession with it for the most part, and how I wanted to just have it wrapped in every corner of my life. And I think as I've gotten older, which we'll get into later, I've had to find ways to balance that a little bit, because it can be, I wanted to cancel the weekends for much of my life and just trade all the time. And it
Mm.
eventually you realize that as much as that's a good thing, later on in life, you end up doing better when you have a little space from it sometimes.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And going back to what I said at the very beginning, of excited to talk with you and just this conversation, because I jive a lot with, I think, your message and what you put out, which is really, it's fascinating to me. So it's a cool story. And the reason I even asked about how that ended up facilitating, because I look at one of the biggest issues that I face, and I think a lot of people face, are limiting beliefs around making money, and
Right.
the ability, being in an environment where the potential is there, but being able yourself to allow yourself to be able to make $100,000 is something that I know I, especially at a younger age, would not have been able to do. Like, the idea of me making that much money was would be such a foreign concept, that I would have never been able to do that. Were you, were you like silver spoon cool? Were you raised with some wealth to where maybe like large amounts of money didn't mean as much to you? Or because I think the
Good
scarcity
question.
mindset is very
Right. Oh
real,
yeah.
in
It's
my
a
life.
great question.
Mm.
There are a lot. I'll answer it. I'll answer all that. But first, I'll say this is something that a lot of us wrestle with. I wrestle with it a lot too. There's a lot of billionaires and immigrants, especially who are billionaires, who have terrible scarcity mindset, despite having more money than 10 lifetimes could handle. So that work isn't necessarily fixed by money. It seems like it would be, but it's not. It's just not the way it is. It's something else has to be done. That's a deep internal lifelong thing to work through.
Mm.
And having more money does help you, but it's the same thing as when you're taking a decent sized loser. Say that you advance year 5 of your career and you're making a lot more money, but you start having a losing streak, and the losing streak is an amount of money that normally would have crushed you, and it's still not good. But you're looking at that money from the view of the year 1 or year 2 person, and not the year 5 person that you become. And it triggers a fight or flight, like you're legitimately going to be in harm, like you're going to get hurt or your life's in danger. And you can trigger those feelings when really it sucks, but it's just money and you haven't really caught up. It's almost like you're trading with your young self, but you've matured, but that part hasn't caught up. So I
Yeah.
think I'd say that. And in terms of me, no, silver spoon. Small town in Wisconsin. My parents were, middle class. They had their own business. I mean,
Okay.
not really. I mean, no, not the case with me. I mean, I didn't have a poor life, but I didn't have a wealthy life necessarily. I had a good life, but it was that's not. And I have friends whose parents, a friend I met whose parents owned buildings in New York, and they were self-made, multi 10 millionaires. And I saw him, he's a great guy, but he struggled with never having anything be enough because it was always hard to live up to that. So you can be on either side of that and have emotional struggles that go along with that. And I just think the journey is different for everybody.
We all got our baggage, don't we? For sure.
We do.
Now, one of the very cool things I think about your story or your journey into trading is, even with maybe dabbling in it early, I think a very normal thing for most people would maybe just try to trade on their own. But from what I understand, virtually your entire career has been in a professional environment. Is that true? And how does that go?
Yeah, partially true. So I started off in high school, and if that even counts, high school and college, and I was just trading on my own, just reading books, trading for a living, Dr. Elder, this, that. I mean, every book you can think of, Market Wizards multiple times, all that stuff that everyone reads. And there's that, and that was the first part of the journey. And then I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I was at a career fair there, and they had some firms from Chicago who were prop firms looking for people. And the first one I went to was it was a big firm. I forget the name. I don't know, it was Cumberland or DRW or DSW or whatever they're called.
Okay.
And they basically told me to get lost because you've been trading on all this stuff on your own in junior high and high school, and we're not interested in that because you have preconceived notions in your head. And I thought that was interesting. Let's refuse somebody because they're interested in something. And then the next group I went to that hired me said, well, this is great. You've shown that you love it at a young age, and we'd be happy to have you because that's a sign of an obsession with it, which is a good thing. And then they took me on, and it was great. It worked out for both of us. So I thought that was funny, how you can view something. But I got a job there. It was called International Trading Group, and then eventually became DE Trading. The guy Dave Ellis who started it, and it's closed since. He's older now, and he just kind of got out of the business. But I spent 10 or 11 years there, and maybe 12, I can't remember. And so that was the professional part where I learned from other people. I got to see, learn to trade futures pretty much, and learned all about leveraged products, events, currencies, and bonds and stuff. And then after that, in 2015, I went on my own, took that knowledge with me, and then spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to trade stocks, which is surprisingly very different than trading futures. It's very different. There's some crossover, of course, but it's not the same thing.
Sure. Oh, so interesting. So fast forwarding to even like through today, you are you're not in a prop. You are self-funded, trading your own.
Yep, on my own since 2015, probably about.
Very cool. Okay. Now, why not just go on your own into futures? Why did you deviate into stocks, kind of what you used to know, or because you were trading futures at the prop firm?
Yeah, futures. I mean, I was on my own before the prop firm. I'd trade anything. I just wanted to be involved in the market. And then the prop firm ended up, most guys traded bond and fixed income futures, and they wanted to start an equity futures. They wanted an equity futures group. So they just said, hey, you're the new guy. Go figure out how to trade S&P 500 futures. And I thought, okay, I had no idea. So there was one other guy, his name was Brent Nord, actually a good friend of mine. He's been trading 25 years. And him and I do a little bit of podcasting together. And he was the guy that I kind of linked up with, and we figured out he traded some European equity futures, and then we both traded the S&Ps, and we kind of grew, and they hired other traders around us, and it kind of built up over time. And eventually we had maybe, a third of the firm was equity traders, but it was mostly fixed income, which is like 5-year, 10-year futures, 30-year futures. And then, that's how that played out.
And then why did you make the transition into stocks instead of just your own futures or trading futures?
Well, so back when I started, things have, this is good for people to hear because things have changed a lot. When I first started, you could read the order book. I would videotape my screen, go home every day, watch post unemployment, because those used to be huge market movers. And CPI, which is important now and stopped being important for probably 10 years, and it used to be important back in the day. And you'll start to see too, when the consumer is struggling, you'll see that consumer confidence and University of Michigan become very important, and right now they're not really. So you'll see these numbers become nothing to everything depending on the cycle we're in. And so back then we did a lot of trade on these numbers, and I would video record my screen and watch all the orders come in. You could actually see things that would give you an edge. And I found that as time went on and the computers and the algorithms came in, it became really difficult to do that kind of trading unless all hell breaks loose. So after the pandemic, that stuff came back in style. Recently, when it's really busy, we're making new lows and everyone's panicking. A lot of the machines kind of disappear. It seems like they do, and there's a lot more, you can read what's going on more. I call it kind of going back to the legacy trading for me. So I kind of flip that, put that costume back on. And then when it starts to get calm, like the last few days in the rally, it's back into the swing trading long base character that I developed the last 5 years. So it's a bad idea to flip around, but when you spend, a few decades, you start to pick up, like you can put different hats on, and that's kind of where I'm evolving into. So to answer your question, I wanted to add other things because with the Fed all these years just cutting rates, it kind of killed a lot of the volatility for futures during the day, but it made stocks long only very good. So you had people who were doing very well with stocks, but it's not that they weren't good traders. It's just that when the environment changed, they have never seen anything else. So they're kind of like, where's my style? And for me, I almost had to learn their style. And then now my old style is becoming more valuable recently, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I also have to ask, is your camera on a bit of a swivel?
Yeah, I'm on an iPad. Let me.
Oh, very good. Okay. No, as long
as
as it is moving and it's not just me, I just feel like my eyes were deceiving me there for a second.
Yeah,
it's all good though. Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, so that's fascinating. That's a very cool. You have a very cool perspective, having started on your own, being in a professional environment, which I know most of retail traders are never going to experience ever. And even something you just said there about like and I know this is probably scratching the surface, but even the level of commitment to record your screens and then go back and rewatch those, and to make that kind of time and effort into your craft, I think is a big missing piece in the retail world, where the idea of stepping up and putting in that much effort is just like even that portion of it is like a level of effort that most people will never do. I say people that just come and go, so it's a very interesting perspective that you have. And so let's do this. You have a podcast called Trading Life Podcast. And it's a nice blend of things on the screen, things off the screen, which I really love the idea too of the lifestyle of trading. And I would say something that has helped me massively was when I started to realize that this is I have to hold myself to a performance level, and I have to behave as a performer. And the things that I do off the screen impact massively what happens in my trading. And maybe a little bit inside that vein, if we could, you've transitioned from working in a professional office, you now have a home office. So why don't we rapid fire a little bit for anybody listening?
Yeah.
Setting up your home office, let's go through, I'll go first to give you a second to think. What would you say is, if you're setting up your home office, something you should really focus on? Because I get asked all the time, Corbs, what are your screens? And it seems like one of the most unimportant things to focus on, at least not spending a lot of money on your monitors.
Right.
You have other things. So I'll go first, and I'll say, if you could set up, if you can build a home office in a way to where you have some type of view that is expansive, a window, something to look that goes beyond, and I've definitely had offices where it's right up against the wall, and I've even been in offices where I've rented basement apartments and there's been no windows anywhere. And I would say, from all the places I've been in, when you spend a lot of time somewhere and you can have some depth of vision and it's expansive, if something expands, it just does something for the time you can spend there. And I think keep your attitude up. And so finding a way, or if you can, to introduce something expansive as far as view, or at least some greenery, I would say, is big time. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So you'd laugh. I probably have 15 or 20 offices. I've been downtown at the Board of Trade. I've been in Florida. I've been in no windows. I've been in a garden area. And I used to get so messed up on my screens when my system would change, because it would throw me off so much. It's like you're like a superstitious athlete or something, where every day you have and it really does help. But I learned over time to really get more adaptable with that. So since I'm trading, I used to have 6 screens or even 8 screens, and now I have 3 screens. And it's because sometimes when I'm trading, I would like to have 4 or 5, but then when it's not as busy, I'm doing a little more research, a little more long only, maybe some position trading. And then I want to I kind of have a hybrid setup right now. But I love the idea that you had of expansiveness. I mean, I just got a home office built. It's not done, so it's not going to give you, I'll show you a little bit of.
Oh,
so
very cool.
Okay, let me see. We can't even, I don't know if you can see, I have 3 screens there.
Yep, looks like a standing desk.
Okay, standing desk. Oh, this is not done, but I have a fireplace here, but it needs to get drywalled in. I'm gonna have 5 windows in here. So to give you an idea of kind of my greenery and stuff.
Yes, love it.
So, and it's not, I've got these, big high lofted ceilings and things like that. So this is and it's not finished, so it'll be different. But you have to work with what you got too. But distracted environment with kids crawling around, not a very good situation. I don't know, I like to have speakers. I have a Ember heated coffee mug, so I like to have my coffee in the morning. I have another one that I really like is putting, it's good for your eyes. Sorry, this camera is all out of whack here. Is put some LED lights, maybe turn the main lights off in the morning, and you put some lights behind your screen like this. And it readjusts your eyes and kind of creates an ambiance that is really good. I got this from Charles Kirk, who's a guy I subscribe to a newsletter, but he loves that, and it's really been good for me so early in the morning, especially when it's maybe dark out and that time of year, instead of blasting those lights on, I'll put the behind the screen lights on. Your eyes kind of adjust better. So, and I also play. I have a squawker. I pay for when it's busy, like a news guy, to Fed talk or whatever. But I also put on some quiet, relaxing music, just real quietly in the background on YouTube, and let it play, and it sets me in a calmer mindset. So that's something that I've been doing. But otherwise, to each your own. You learn, you try stuff, you overdo it, then you cut it back. And it is true, less is more, but sometimes you want more screens when it's busy. So you find the right mix that you need.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So lights behind the monitors and music, your speaker situation is a big thing for you. So I love that a lot. I would add one more thing. The something that's helped me out a lot is making the office area extremely clean. Like clutter, like this is like on the desk and stuff, like no extra things that you're not using, not letting cups pile up, or not having, I can't really move my camera, but wherever the office is, there's not like stuff just stacked up or anything like that.
Right.
No. And I think if you have any other thoughts about this too, but making the connection, and I firmly believe that whatever we're kind of setting up in our outer space, it really reflects whatever kind of mental bandwidth we have. And I really believe that if I took somebody and just kind of looked at how many, let's say, icons they have all over the place, or what their office looks like, or what their car looks like, and how that's kind of set up, or what kind of clutter is there, I could probably get a good insight into what's going on inside their head and how directionless that things are. And so something about cleaning up your outside world, it really helps alleviate and kind of free up some mental space. And the idea of just keeping it dusted, keeping it clean, keeping it clutter-free, which is just kind of like an ongoing thing that never ends, is very powerful in your home office, I would say. Okay.
I totally agree.
Add to the home office.
Yep, I'm gonna say. I do use those blue light filtering glasses sometimes in the morning, and it just makes it easier to look at my screen. So I never did that when I was younger, but that's not a bad thing to do. It just makes it, sometimes it's just, you don't squint, it just makes it feel easy to look at the screen, kind of like you're looking at a Kindle or something. So I do like that. Maybe I like to have a notepad just to jot down some ideas. And sometimes when I'm struggling, I like to have like almost a 1-day journal where it's kind of like, this is what I think could happen today. And if A or B happens, I'm going to do this or that. Can I just at least follow my damn rules today? And let's just start there. And then at the end of the day, I'll rip that up and I'll throw it away. And that's kind of a little bit of a crisis management tool when I'm struggling. If I'm day trading, and right now I'm day trading a lot more, but last year I wasn't day trading really at all, because it really wasn't as good as holding positions. So it really just depends. For me, it depends on I'll probably do less day trading the next X amount of years, but if it stays this busy, I won't. So it's kind of going to have to move with the market.
Making hay while the sun's shining, so to
That's what
speak.
you do. Yeah, you go where it makes sense. Even though you have an idea of where you want your life to go, you have to you don't want to force things in the direction that don't make sense at the moment.
Yeah, very good. And I've recently gotten a pair of the blue light blocking glasses as well. And I don't know if I've seen like a major something to it, but I feel like it helps. So I wear them, typically throughout the day as well. So that's a good tip too. Very cool.
Yeah, they have a little yellow. Mine have a little yellowish tint to them, and that I found I like those little yellow lenses. Those are my favorite ones. But yeah,
okay.
something to play with.
Yeah, very good. Awesome. Okay, now maybe just kind of keeping the theme going, I guess, of trader life, and this is, I feel like, a great thing to talk about, and I love that I can talk about it with you. What would you say is, and maybe we can even kind of bounce back and forth a little bit if it helps, but there's a lot of things we can do on the screens to improve our trading. If you had to say an activity, an action, a habit, something that was not specifically trading related, something you would do off the screens that would just have, in your opinion, maybe it doesn't have to be the biggest impact, because if you have like several of these, feel free. But what would you say you can do off the screens that would make a big impact to your trading?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to beat around that from a few angles. First thing is, I think it's super important just as a human to the positive mental thinking stuff is everywhere, right? But the biggest impediment isn't that you're not thinking positive. It's that you are holding on to the negative so long that the positive doesn't have room to come through. So you get stuck in the shitty energy of a bad day, or what you could have and should have done with how you screwed up the trade that you saw coming, and how frustrated you are for not taking advantage of it when it was busy or something like that. And you're stuck in that long enough that almost is blinding you from what you're good at. And I have found that some kind of an artistic pursuit outside of the market. So I've always exercised like 5 to 7 days a week, and I was a basketball player and a tennis player. I did a lot of tennis as an adult, and recently I started jujitsu, which has been just the best, because you go there, it's totally new for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I've only taken about 5 or 6 classes, so I'm so focused in the present moment, and it's so humbling. And I come back from that, no matter what happens, it just totally clears my mind of anything I was worried about. And it's a forced reset, and it's hard for me to generate that on my own. So I think getting those things inserted in your life, and it could even be learning tennis or playing pickleball, or I don't know, learning an instrument, whatever you're interested in, is really helpful, because it teaches you what it's like to be a beginner, and it just blanks your mind out. And if you feel that curiosity and that the humbleness of how that is, and it really kind of, when I go back to trade, I just feel refreshed. And it's sometimes hard for me to generate that on my own. I can get stuck in my negativity otherwise.
Sure. No, that's really helpful. I like that as a tip a lot. I've actually recently, a while ago now, but it picked up boxing. And, I enjoy that a lot, quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's something I would add, and I would love I'd like to start a conversation with it. Something I've realized that helps my performance significantly is prioritizing sleep. And sleep is something that I would have definitely just never even thought to prioritize in my life. I definitely have erred on the side of sleep when we're dead and go, and sleep less and, do more. And I've flipped the script on that hard, and to where the point now I'll even work other things around my schedule or cut other parts of my routine short to make sure that I'm sleeping enough. And I would be interested if you've noticed something similar, or if you do anything maybe to like track your sleep or some way to prioritize that.
Oh yeah, a lot to say on this. So like you, it sounds like you and I are similar, and I'll gobble up content and podcasts on all this stuff at all times. So I have an Aura ring, a second version Aura ring. So I have a Apple Watch, but I like the Aura
sleep as well.
Yeah, I like the Aura ring a lot. So as a young kid, I needed lots of naps, and I would go really hard all day and sleep really hard. And I was groggy in the morning my whole life, and I have a hard time waking up. It's just always been like that for me. So I would move mountains to get my sleep. So for me, even with 2 little kids, I just make time for my sleep, and I'll blow off and open. So my time start here is harder. It's 6:30 a.m. it opens. So a lot of times you'll just see me sleep. I'll just miss the first hour of the day if I don't sleep well. I don't even care, because I'll come in and do better the rest of the day, and I'll prep at night. And honestly, sometimes it helps me to miss the first half hour, to be honest. I'm not saying that's a regular thing, but I will prioritize that sleep like you do. I know Roger Federer and LeBron James sleep, they said 12 hours a day, 10 at night, and 2-hour naps. Now they're training physically nonstop. So it's a little different, but I feel like when we use our brains all day to trade, and we're also exercising, boxing, jujitsu, it's exhausting. And I really need that sleep. I'm with you. And I find it to be not even worth living if I'm going to be getting 6.5 hours of sleep every night. So I just can't live that way.
The Aura Ring has been very powerful because it was the first thing I've done that was able to put a metric to it. And I've realized that if my readiness score is 80%, that my attention is better, my focus is stronger, just overall my sharpness is so much better. And I just can track this where if that thing drops below and I'm in like in the 60s for some reason or 50s, or
Yep.
I was sick a few weeks ago and I was getting like these 40s and 50s. And
Yep.
there's a certain level of just brain dead that when you're really aware of how this works, it's just like, you don't ever want to be there. You know, it's really crazy. And I feel one of the biggest things about trading for this is when we are trading, we feel these emotions like crazy. And the ability that we have to stop ourselves from doing something crazy is so important. And if I am well rested, the likelihood that I'm going to stop myself and do the right thing just jumps through the roof, as opposed to if I am underslept, now I'm shorter, now my mood's worse, now the likelihood that something's going to put me on tilt and I'm not going to be able to stop myself elevates as well. And it's a huge thing for me recently within the last year or so that I've been really prioritizing.
It messes up your brain over. They've done studies with hedge fund managers, some of them that are really successful, and some of them are in their 50s or 60s in the studies, and their brains were 20 years aged in a lot of metrics because of lack of sleep from working so hard. And you just tap out earlier. I think we're all burning through hormones and things faster because of the screens, and it's all, the medicine has answers for a lot of it too. But I mean, it's a badge of honor of some people to not sleep a lot, but it's just a stupid decision longer term. It's not good for you. I know sometimes people, I get it, you have to do it sometimes, but I'm with you. And also I've realized that if I exercise intensely, like play tennis late at night, I get terrible sleep and my scores are crappy the next day because I'm jacked with my heart rate all night, and I don't. I've learned. Not as big of a deal for you because you have a later start, but for me at 6:30, it doesn't work well. So I have to be careful about exercising late at night.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, and if anybody wants to improve their sleep, some big things that I've found is the no caffeine after like 10 in the afternoon, especially no caffeine in the afternoon, like after noon. Making sure the temperature is dropped when you sleep. Warm, if your body is hot, it really messes up my sleep score.
Terrible.
No big meals late at night, like 3 hours before bed, no food. The natural stuff your body kind of does, it's now processing food instead of doing that while you're sleeping. So going to bed a little hungry is nice. And I would say just like length of time, you got to have enough sleep time. There's no workaround for that. So anybody listening, to make those small adjustments, you will sleep better, for sure. Okay.
So two quick ads I'll have. I think you nailed the biggies. You nailed the big three. I have actually a list of like 5 things I'll do if I'm not sleeping well. And the other 2, I'll do a hot shower, an hour and a half, hour before bed. And I'll read and no shows, no TV shows at night. It just gets you agitated. So a lot of times that doesn't affect me, but if I'm not sleeping well, I throw in everything you did plus a hot shower and then some reading, and then it really kind of calms me down and knocks me out. So it's getting in bed earlier. Reading is good, and just getting in bed with like 45 minutes before you actually want to fall asleep is really nice.
If you can do it, 100%. Very cool. Talking about this, do you do anything with like a Luminosity or a brain training app?
I've gone down all those roads. I used to hire this lady who put the things on my head, the electrodes, and I played all the little games with my brain to try to get beta waves and delta waves. And I did a lot of that stuff. And I didn't find it to be a game changer for me. I just didn't. I did it for about 6 months. And I just didn't find it to to move the needle for me. Not saying it won't. And I did the brain apps in the games, and I've actually quit doing them. So I've tried it, but it didn't stick for me.
Interesting, very interesting. And the reason I ask is I've actually been kind of on and off. I started a while ago, my subscription ran out. I went several months without it. And then not that long ago, I restarted Luminosity. And I've kind of incorporated it into a bit of my routine to where, like, when I sit down to start, the first thing I'll do is play the kind of thing they build out for you. And I find it to be a nice way to jumpstart the brain a little bit, or at least kind of get my mind, get the dust off a little as it is. So
Yeah.
But interesting. Yeah, I wanted to hear your input on that.
Can I add a little bit more on that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so the direction my career has been moving is towards less structure and more flow. That's like the biggest way I'd put it. And what that means for me is, so in the past, I was always overworking, over planning, tons of trading journals, and I mean, just every app, all the stuff we're talking about. And I was trying to put everything in my corner. And it's similar to getting married and having your wife check all the boxes, but there's just not like the feeling. Somebody else might not check all the boxes, but you have that feeling. And I'm kind of moving more towards the feeling. So these things are all important, especially the sleep, but I'm kind of moving more towards the artsy side, the right brain side of flowing. And you know, my friend Brent and I were talking about a market move, and I came across somebody on a chat room, and they had posted like a chart with like the RSI and all these little like applets about like this crossed over that and all these things on the chart. And I remember laughing and telling him, I'm like, that's what I would have done 10 years ago. And I'm not criticizing the person. It was just that you eventually learn that that's almost getting in the way sometimes. And it's more important just to kind of flow with your body and with the market, and do less is more almost. It's more waiting. And I think you just get there over time. I mean, that's just what I found and how I've been moving.
Awesome. Yeah, a little more effortless. Good on you. I love that. Okay. What about the actual, like, what would you say, maybe something on the screens now, not so much live market trading, but what would you say is an activity somebody could do, trading related, that would push the needle or be maybe like the very impactful if you committed to doing this?
Yeah, I think study your best trades and really intimately know why they're your best trades for you, not for somebody else. I know some people go through and look at every move that happened positively over the biggest 100 stocks. That's not a bad thing. You can do that too. But I think the ones that you figured out, and the ones that, because eventually what you end up doing is you study all these people, you make winners, you make losers, and you start piecing together your own stuff and then things you've learned from others, and you start making your own style eventually. And it's kind of your personal imprint on this like art form of yours, and you're doing it in the market, and no one's exactly the same as you, even though they might have similar things. And to really have to be able to explain almost to an 8-year-old, this is what I do when I'm successful, and this is why I'm doing this trade. And usually the best trades are really simple. It could be like, hey, everyone sold monkeypox, and they had 10 days to panic, and they panicked here on something that's probably not going to be COVID, but I understand that psychologically everyone's scared right now because of that. So there's a chance down here that if you're going to sell, Apple just went down, Nvidia just went down, and we're selling on monkeypox, that is probably going to be a time that the panicking is done. And I mean, I could explain that to a very young person and they can understand what I'm saying. It doesn't mean it's easy to trade, but it's just stuff like that keeps repeating over and over. And it's something you can relate to, versus getting stuck in the jungle of, because when I have like a framework like that or a bias, then I can start to find spots to get in. But if I'm just trading on the chart and I don't have that positioning or psychological, what other participants are doing, then I struggle because it just becomes another chart. And if I only traded the chart, I could never trade bigger at certain times. So I like to trade a lot bigger when I'm right, but I can't do that if I just have one thing. And that isn't universally true for everybody, but I've found from the people I know who have done the best, there's always multiple angles. It could be fundamentals and technicals, but a lot of it's sentiment, psychology, and things like that, especially in the short term, to the swing, to day trading stuff. It's really positioning a lot. And I don't know if I'm off topic a little bit, but I think the answer to your question was to intimately study what you do well and really get good at identifying that, And as that grows, you kind of build a book of like, this is the best stuff I do, and let's stay as close to that as I can. And then eventually you might look to build a new strategy, and you have to kind of go through the bumps. But then eventually you find like, okay, in this new strategy, these are the things that have worked well for me. And then you keep adding things over time. Like I think right now, a lot of people are being forced to learn new strategies because they've taken away, in the short term, it'll come back, but they've taken away a lot of the games that were working the last few years for the time being.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if somebody was wanting to look over and kind of like, okay, I want to find the things that I'm doing well and figure out how I do this better, or even maybe at a starting point, figure out more clarity around why these are working well for me. Do you think the best thing to do would be like chart replays, looking at static charts, just reflecting on it? What would be like the actual activity you think that would be the best?
Yeah. So if you're day trading 20, 30 trades a day, even 5 to 10 trades a day, it might include some looking at the order book, how it looks at key moments, as there big orders, spoofing, or it might be that. I've done that before. There's some of that work. And when you do this work, it's cumulative. You keep it forever. So it might go out of style and come back in style. It might be good one day a week. And it's just, you keep those tools, right? It's like, think about a boxer or a jujitsu practice. It's just, every time you learn something, there's a time and place where that strategy becomes useful, but it might not be always useful. So
Yes.
that's for short term. For swing trading, I'm a member of Stock B, and I kind of hang out in the background and look at a few things on there. But he's a really nice guy, and he has some good kind of his methodology. What? Stock B, STOCKBEE.
Oh.
And the reason I bring that up is just because I actually sometimes get distracted by that stuff because I don't really trade any of the methods on there, but I do pick up sentiment, and I can appreciate some of the ways that you can get good at methods. So I learned a little bit about learning, and everything I've joined a lot of groups. I pick up stuff. The funny thing is I never joined any groups when I was at my professional firm at all. And then when I got into stocks, I started joining groups to see what I could learn. And the funny thing is, the more you learn and the more you join, the more you realize what you're not. You're like, this is not going to work for me. And it seems simple, but it's just another way that I'm realizing what I'm not. And when I keep figuring out what I'm not, then there's a few things left that I might be, and then I move closer to my destiny. So that's kind of what I've gotten the most out of the groups is my own direction.
Yeah, part of the journey of just, yeah, that's a great, well said. Awesome. Okay, cool. And so I would even iterate that. I think something that's helped me out a lot are as somebody day trading, very active. The chart replays have been massive, just to go back and really, see things you can't see if you're looking at a static chart, see it in real time, kind of how that shaped up, but rewatching it, building a level of mastery around what you do. And, that's been important for me too. So
can I add to this too again?
Say what?
Can I add a little bit more to this too again?
Pile it right on.
Yeah, let's stack it on. So on the chart replay stuff, I think I did this for probably 8 years religiously, is I had a red pen and a blue pen. And the way I printed out the trade, a 2-minute chart when I was trading futures, and I would mark every entry was a solid dot with a circle, and then the exit was just a dot, a regular dot. So an example would be if I bought the 39s, on the 39s in the chart, it would be blue dot, circle around it. That's an entry. And then when I would exit, it would be red dot, red dot, red dot. When I would enter a short, it would be solid red dot with a circle. And then when it exited, it would be blue dot, blue dot, blue dot for buying the short back. And I would see that visually. And when I would struggle, I would look at it and I would say, all right, today, be proud of where you're getting in. Like, get in on the retest, buy the bottom of the range. Only if you're going to stay out of the middle of the range, either buy the breakout or buy the bottom. Stop getting caught in the middle, or have a plan. And then buy that spot that looks ugly with small size. And when it holds, add to it. Instead of going too big right away. I would have things that I could work on. And I would look at it. And at the end of the day, you see your spots. And like, this is shit. I'm in the middle of the range all day. And the next day it was like, let's be proud of our spots. So I did a lot of that, and that was helpful because I was forced to do that and see, geez, this is not very good trading what you're doing. You want to buy, so you're buying the top of every bar all day long. You're correct, but you're losing money. So buy it when it looks ugly. If you want to buy it when buy half of it when it looks ugly, and then add to it, or something different than what you're doing. And that helped me get better at my entries.
So that means so much to me, and it's such a thing I feel so strongly about, because I know one thing I really, really struggle with, especially coming up, is when things go bad for a long period of time, I just avoided it. Like, I didn't want to look at it. I was disappointed in myself. I didn't want to stay on the charts and really reflect on things. And when I had that kind of personal growth of being able to be disappointed or have a bad day, but be able to look at what actually happened and maybe not be as emotional or judgmental about it, but just try to factually look at what happened. To your point, you just see these things that are just, they're so obvious, where it's like,
Yeah.
well, of course, look at all these bad shorts as the market was trending up today. And then you can really start making some change. But as long as you feed into that really bad desire to just like avoid things that are bad in your life, you just can't grow. You can't change anything, and you just sit there and struggle with it. And that was something that was I look back, and it's so many great things about trading, because it's like the purpose of life, like it's growth type stuff. You just work
It
through
is.
stuff. And
There's nothing more personal growth oriented than trading. It's crazy.
yeah, 100%. Oh, I love it. Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to add more on that again. I have to just keep adding on it. So I would say I agree with what you're saying. I've found that I don't want to pound myself into the ground and look at all my negative trades forever either. And when I really have a bad taste in my mouth, I will put those away. I will print them out. I save the data. And then maybe like over the weekend, when I'm calmed down, I'll go plot my shitty day and I'll look at it. But a lot of times, if I don't sleep well, or I have my in-laws in town and I'm there and I have things to do and I'm distracted, I won't look at that day too much, because it's pretty clear that I blew up because I was distracted. And I don't need to like, hey, you sold the bottom of the bar. And I don't need to beat myself up for something that's almost external to, you know what I mean? So I want to focus more on, I'm going to focus more on what I do well, but I want to be aware of my general spot picking. And so sometimes when I was younger, I would beat myself into the ground and really look at those negative days. And I don't think I got a lot out of it. It's like watching film of your worst tennis match ever. I mean, I don't know how much growth there is in that. So it's like, it's a subtlety to figure out how to do it the right way. I think we got to find the balance there.
Yeah, that's a really nice point. I'm glad you added it. And maybe speaking of just like balance, I would love your input on this, because to your point, even, it seems like you're really prioritizing balance, if I understand. And one thing I know that there is, a certain amount of hours that we, are trading every day, especially if you're doing something like day trading, there's these big chunks of hours every day you're on the screens just with the market open. And then there's either prep time or maybe like debrief time. But then there also, especially in the beginning and all around, there's time you need to dedicate to working on your trading. And I think that when you enter into a space like trading, it's very entrepreneurial, where you're your own boss, you call the shots. And maybe one of the big fallacies for entrepreneurs is overestimating how much you can get done in a day. And at the end of a week, you never get anything done. And I feel like I've always put on, all these things that I need to do, or all this time that I need to be dedicating to my craft. And a lot of times it's just overwhelming, and I never actually end up doing it all. And so I would be interested maybe with the life balance part of it. And what I've kind of ended on, or where I'm at now with it, is like Monday through Friday, I try to just keep my body strong, my mind sharp, and then almost like light workouts, if you will, with preps and replaying charts, and then making sacrifice if I choose to do this, if I want to push myself on the weekends, saying no to friends, saying no to stuff, with intention, and using that time to kind of really push the needle, I guess. But anyway, it's still something that I have ongoing, and I'll probably always just be trying to strike the balance with it. But good, kind of just maybe speak into the life work balance of making sure you're putting in your screen time, making sure you're actually doing stuff. You're not just showing up every day trading and not really getting any better. But yeah.
Okay. I got tons to say on this. I've had so many struggles on this. I hired a coach for a while to help me with this. I used to be just such a slave to my to-do list that when I put something on my calendar, or not even calendar, when I put something on my list mentally, on Sunday that I thought I should do. I almost became like something that I was in chains that I had to do. Even if things change, I got to do this.
Yeah.
And because I'm a disciplined person who follows through on my word and blah, blah, blah. And it just became living in hell for me. And I almost am totally the opposite now. I've dropped so much of that. I literally do something as they become present, as it comes up. I just do it in the moment. I don't even think about it. I say, hey, I got some time. Let's do this. It makes sense. This is the direction I want my life to go. I need to do these things. But I very rarely put them down and use lists. Now, if I ran a company with 10 people, I'd have to have lists and things. I get that. But since I don't do that and I'm with myself, I don't have to do that to myself anymore. It's a torture that it's just, I really am trying not to do that anymore. And I think honestly, you'd be better off trading. Like if I had to skip 2 days a week, I'd skip Monday and Friday. I think generally Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are probably better days to trade. Not always, but generally. So I would probably prefer trading 4 days a week than I would trading 5 days a week. And I trade 4 days a week a lot when it's slower. Lately, I've been doing 5, but in most of my life, I never took a day off. I never took a vacation. And I'm just now starting to get better about that because it's a sickness almost where you just never, ever want to be away. You want to miss something, or you just like doing it a lot. But you realize that when you get that obsessed with something, you don't get away from it. And there's the diffuse part of the brain and like the focused part of the brain. And when you go on a walk or take a bath or drive in a car, you use that like background diffuse part of the brain. You start getting realizations and insights. And if you never give yourself that time, that's where the real learning comes, in the perspective, listening to podcasts or reading books or talking to other traders and then thinking about it and getting away from it a little bit. And if you don't do that, you're kind of stuck. You're the foot soldier fighting every day, but you're never the general and you can never see it. So you have to be both. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. We are quickly running out of time. I hate to even say it.
That's crazy how this one, I feel like we've been on here for 10 minutes.
I agree. I'm glad you feel the same way. Let me, if I could, maybe as a final type of question, and
sure.
In your opinion, why is trading so hard and what do we do about it? And I'll preface this first because I know it's kind of like, what do you need to do to succeed in trading? There's not one thing, and depending on who you are, things will be more important than other things or easier for you than other things. But just maybe in a general sense or personally to you, if you had to think about it and say, trading's so hard because of this, but here's something that we should do about it, what would you say to that?
I would say that I think you share the love. I love trading since I was a little kid, and I just feel like I'm here to trade it'll be a part of my life forever, even if I decide to do other things too. And it's one of those things where I would never wish it on anybody. I would tell everyone I know who I'm close to, don't even get into this business. And if you really want to still get into it, I guess you're into it, because it's the hardest, it's the most, bless you, it's the most brutal process of self-growth and exploration. And it's very rare to find someone who does it for a living and sits through all this over multiple decades, because it pushes buttons that aren't going to get pushed anywhere else. The stress is different than a normal job. It does something to you that it makes you look at things that you'd rather not look at, and you feel apathy, you feel exhilaration and top of the world. And then you realize that's when you get hit the hardest, and then you can't get out of bed and you don't want to do it. And you want to quit, and then you're back and it's great. And then you want to quit again, and everyone goes through it. And it's even, I told somebody that I was talking to, a younger trader, and he's like, well, how could you feel that way after doing it so long? And I'm saying, listen, on my 11th year, on my 15th year, I had moments where I just wanted to quit. I had a horrible few months, and everyone goes through it. And I think that if you choose this, you get through it all. You get up, and what you learn eventually is that you just have to, I think Bill Belichick said this, he's like, what do you do after losing like a tough game in the playoffs or a Super Bowl that you felt like you should have won? It's like, we literally get up the next day, maybe we heal for a little bit, and we get right back to it. And it sounds so simple, but that's really what we have to do, is just get up. Yeah, you screwed it up. You studied it. You didn't make money. You should have, whatever happened. It's unforgivable because I did this 5 times in a row. Well, I guess you need number 6. And then maybe in the 7th one, you won't do it. And I kind of think every lesson we get is something that we need to have to move towards the person or the trader that we want to be. So every painful lesson is fuel that molds you for the guy who doesn't have to have that anymore, and who has the bigger position on and gets it next time, or whatever you're trying to do. And without those lessons, you don't have that fuel, you don't have that awareness. Like I don't know how you learn this without suffering. And you want to learn from people and you want to suffer less, but you don't have to look at it as suffering, but these lessons that are not fun to go through are part of the process. They just are. So I think you just got to keep going through it. And if you go through it long enough, then you find where you're going. And even when you're doing it for a long time, you never master it. It never stops, because then the market changes and then you have to adapt. And I think that's what makes it fun. It's kind of, it's like being an athlete or a coach in sports. The challenges just keep coming. So I don't know if I answered that, but it's hard to answer exactly, but.
Yeah, no, you answered it perfectly. I think just one of the things that's hard about it is it's just a unique business that pushes you extremely hard and far and in weird ways. And it requires you, and what we do about that is just really commit to sticking with it and pushing through those things.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with you. And to your point, I like the last thing you said there, that of all the things about trading that maybe change and make this difficult, it is one of the pros about this business, to where you can sit here and do the same thing every day, but it's every single day going to be different. And it makes it
totally different.
I find myself getting very bored, especially when I was younger with stuff. And trading was one of these things that it just never gets boring. It never gets old. It never feels like you're just doing the same thing, maybe in certain market environments, but you see the same setup even 10 different times over the course of a few weeks. And every time you see it, it's going to be some version of different.
It's a little different, so it throws you off, and it's they're similar, but they're never the exact same. Sometimes you remember years apart, you'll see something that's the same. I would also say that I was like you with school. I was so fidgety and watching the clock, and I hated it, and just being talked at. And I think a lot of us are, they label you with some kind of a disability when you don't want to sit still and listen. But it's just I'm the same way. This has been good for me, and other things have invoked the same emotion that you had.
Sure. Very good. All right. Well, listen, you have, just by way of exiting, I know you have a podcast as well. And where can people find you, and where can they tune in to listen? And do you have like a normal schedule of when you release, or?
No, I try to podcast just like I trade, which means when I have inspiration and the trade shows up, then the podcast shows up. So same thing when I have something to say. So usually it's once a week, maybe might be 3 times a week. It might be twice a month. It might be 6 times a month, kind of like that.
Very good.
Trading Life podcast by Brad Jelinek. And the website is tradinglifepodcast.com. I also have another one that I'm going to do for a premium subscription with my friend Brent Nord, who I traded with. Yeah, I traded with him for probably 15 years now. So he's got a ton of good insights, and he's been doing it for, I think, 25 years, a little longer than me even. So we work really well together, and have a little bit of a different but complementary style. So we find that when we talk on the phone more during the day when it's busy, we both trade better.
Now, are you that's not available yet?
No, but we're going to start really soon. We have I think I got everything set up. So we just have to get on there and start doing it. So we've been busy trading lately, so we haven't. But what we intend to do on that is sometimes if something sets up ahead of time, we'll say, hey, we're looking for this to set up the next few days. But a lot of times it's going to be, this is what happened. This is what we did. This is how we entered it and exited it. And it won't be that costly. And it'll just be something that people can look back and learn and see if they can take some things and add it to their style. And a lot of it, he and I are similar. A lot of it is thinking about positioning and understanding people are stuck and they had to take this level out first, and then they're ready to go up because of, and a lot of it is how to think. And we definitely use technicals, but it's technicals are used after the setup happens. So it's like, I'm bullish because of this. Now let's use technicals to get in, versus using technicals without an understanding of why it might not be ready or be ready. I like to know when people are stuck or something's off balance, and then I try to use my technicals. But that's just my approach. It's not the only approach.
Interesting. Yeah, very good. Awesome. Well, you can you know where to find him, and anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can check in and keep up with him. Make sure, if you're following him, it sounds like you need to make sure you hit the notification bell so that you don't miss an episode whenever they do pop up. But this has been a great conversation. I hate that we have to end it here, but thank you so much for your time. And to everybody who's watching, let's all hit the like button on the way out if you're on YouTube. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody.